Welcome to Hong Kong Review 2023. 2023 marked an end to around 3 years of COVID pandemic restrictions. Much of the spotlight happened on how the administration could lead Hong Kong back on track and inject momentum to its economic growth. Still, the city's post-pandemic recovery was hamstrung by global economic headwinds and the growing popularity among Hong Kongers to shop, dine, and have fun across the border. On January 8th, 5 o'clock in the morning, Kowloon Tong MTR station was bustling with eager travelers waiting for the first train to Lok Ma Chau after 3 years of border closure.
The train to Lok Ma Chau is arriving.
It's been 3 years since the border between Hong Kong and the mainland last opened.
等咗好耐啦，係啊，所以第一時間翻去㗎啦。
In the first stage of quarantine-free travel with the mainland, travelers from Hong Kong were limited to a daily quota of 60,000. Online pre-registration was needed. They also needed to present a negative PCR test result. At the mainland's border checkpoint, travelers also needed to complete a health declaration form. This measure was abolished in November.
媽媽入咗院啊，96歲，中咗呢個病毒，我諗都走唔甩㗎啦。你睇下佢仲係後生咯。
The high-speed rail resumed service in January. Shui, which is in proximity to the border, welcomed the first batch of mainland visitors after the border reopened.
細佬係咩嘢？麵撈嚟嘅，麵撈暫時未有貨住。嚇！細路仔過完年就要過嚟上學啦。今日過嚟見證歷史啊！啊，新年冇過嚟啦。今日通關就嗱聲預約過嚟。
Shui used to be packed with mainland shoppers and parallel traders before COVID, but business did not see a bounce back post-pandemic.
就算賣藥業嗰啲咧，都用咗網絡嘅個方法去處理嘅，所以唔好似以前咁樣要真實體落嚟要買嘅。
As soon as the border reopened, mainland visitors were seen queuing up for upmarket shops in Tsim Sha Tsui. There were high hopes the economy would spring back quickly.
高鐵係大灣區裏邊我哋成日講嘅1小時嘅生活圈啦，希望可以一個特效藥，可以幫到香港嘅零售啦，同埋整體嘅經濟嘅。
Another major step in the city's return to normalcy, quarantine measures were finally scrapped on January 30th. Authorities said Hong Kong's pandemic control had entered a new phase. As of January 29th, a total of 2.8 million COVID-positive cases were recorded over the past 3 years. Pandemic advisors, including microbiologist Yuen Kwok-yung, called on the government to set up an independent committee to review its 3 years of pandemic work.
我唔同意成立獨立調查委員會，勞福局同埋醫管局會按住疫情嘅發展，持續總結經驗，將有效嘅應變方案寫進去指引裏邊。
On March the 1st, Hong Kong ended its mask mandate, which lasted 945 days, also marking an end to most of the city's pandemic policies.
我認為而家係一個適當嘅時候，去全面取消口罩令。今年以及來年，我哋會全面拼經濟、拼發展。
The government launched the Hello Hong Kong campaign. The massive publicity drive to woo tourists include a lucky draw for 500,000 free air tickets and a giveaway of 1 million consumption vouchers.
We love Hong Kong!
International sporting events were hosted, including the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens.
I think everybody's here to have a good time. It just feels like Hong Kong's back in full force. With the comeback of tourism, also returning in lockstep was a surge of low-cost mainland group tours visiting Hong Kong. Some groups thronged districts such as To Kwa Wan, especially during lunch hours. Police intervention was needed to direct traffic in these neighborhoods.
個公園都唔夠擺啊，所以好多人就喺晒嗰個行人路嗰度咯。要行馬路嘅巴士外圍，所以有陣時都好危險。
The Travel Industry Authority instantly rolled out measures requiring tour agencies to disclose their itineraries 24 hours before their participants embarked on the budget tours to minimize nuisance to local residents. The first Golden Week post-pandemic in May, some 600,000 mainland tourists arrived. But retailers said they only recovered 40% of their pre-COVID business.
你話旺財嗰方面咧，的確係唔及旺丁嗰個嘅程度啦。咁希望真係要俾啲時間佢，先能夠係一步一步去到回復咯。
And no light at the end of the tunnel for the retail industry. At the start of the year, a subsidiary company under local cosmetics chain Bonjour was forced to wind up. That's followed by the shutdown of this landmark in Tsim Sha Tsui in mid-March, the Sogo department store. While tourists did not return in droves, the government launched another charm offensive, the Happy Hong Kong campaign in April to boost local spending. The campaign included discounted movie tickets, bazaars, and gourmet festivals to lift consumption. But many Hong Kongers flocked across the border to shop and dine.
你慢慢啦，即係每一次我上嚟啦，咁其實都會有好多新嘅玩意，花錢花多咗。
Upwards of 4 million Hong Kong people ventured up north in June and July, some 2 million more than the number of mainland visitors to Hong Kong. In November, the discrepancy burgeoned to 3.4 million. In October alone, Hong Kong people forked out more than 3.6 billion yuan in Shenzhen, leaving Hong Kong retail and catering industries in the lurch.
整體個銷售金額咧，可能就已經跌咗2-3成。今年嘅暑假係5年嚟最差嘅暑假。
As Hong Kong's recovery sputtered on, the first quarter GDP growth could not be sustained in the second quarter and was down 1.3%.
有請司長點證。
香港夜繽紛 ，yeah！
In September, the government launched the Night Vibes Hong Kong campaign in a bid to buoy the city's nighttime economy.
嗰個無人機都吸引到好多人，真係會停低，跟住去影個上空咁。
放煙花嗰個感覺係咁近睇係好特別嘅，同睇電視差好遠。
Waterfront carnivals and bazaars were held in Wan Chai, Kwun Tong, and Sai Wan, with many shopping malls having extended their business hours. Still, limited impacts would ratchet up retailer sales and profits.
鋪頭啲同事覺得係咪都冇生意，做乜要用我樓咧？我從來都唔覺得夜晚會都有額外生意嘅。
In the third quarter, the city's GDP growth stood at 4.1%. But Financial Secretary Paul Chan said as the first 3 quarters of growth were slower than expected, the full-year forecast for GDP growth was revised down to 3.2%. Mid-December marked the extension of the Night Vibes Hong Kong at the Temple Street Night Market. The government said it would continue to organize more events to enliven the Hong Kong economy. They included the giveaway of 200,000 dinner vouchers. In 2023, Hong Kong continued to be plagued by geopolitical tension and global economic headwinds. At the end of September, the city's import-export figure slid for 16 consecutive months before finally recording a hike in October.
喺鐘錶業界又好，喺其他行業嚟講，喺電子業嚟講，喺紡織業界嚟講，跌30跌一半，其實都好正常嘅。
Hong Kong's uncertain economic prospect also beleaguered land sales. At least 6 sites were withdrawn from auctions after drawing tepid responses from developers. Some plots even received 0 bids. The plunge of land sale revenues made inroads into the government's fiscal position. At the beginning of the year, the budget deficit for financial year 2023-24 was forecast at $54.4 billion. However, the deficit was adjusted to over $100 billion in December. In 2023, Hong Kong stocks notched a strong start but failed to sustain the momentum. The Hang Seng Index sank below 16,000 points in December, hitting a 13-month low. An equally dismal situation in Hong Kong's IPO market. In the first 3 quarters, Hong Kong hosted 44 IPO listings. That's a 65% decline from the same period last year. Proceeds from fundraising also slumped 15%. Subsequently, Hong Kong was nudged out of the world's top 5 listing markets, layoffs too at multiple investment banks. In June, the cable television pulled the plug on its 30 years of pay TV services. Chain tutorial center Brilliant Education announced to shutter its business. Under the sluggish business environment, more than 78,000 companies dissolved in the first 10 months of 2023. But Hong Kong also rounded up some good news. The government started to yield results in its bid to become an InnoTech hub. Hong Kong successfully attracted strategic enterprises. During the pandemic, the government had offered a financial lifeline to keep Ocean Park afloat for a few times. Finally, a turnaround in the theme parks business in the 2022-23 fiscal year. Ocean Park logged a profit of over $110 million for the first time in 8 years. Cathay Pacific received a $39 billion bailout fund from the government in 2020. Around half of the rescue fund came from the $19.5 billion preferred shares sold to the government. This year, Cathay posted a half-year profit. With that, the flagship carrier started to buy back 50% of the preferred shares from the government in December.
We have come out of the pandemic. Business is back, and Hong Kong's economy is rebounding.
Welcome back to Hong Kong Review 2023. In the past year, the District Council held its first poll since the Patriots-only electoral overhaul. And after 26 years since the 1997 handover, the government has set a timetable to legislate Article 23 under the Basic Law.
In early May, Chief Executive John Lee announced a proposal to reform the district councils to strengthen the efficacy of district governance. Under the plan, directly contested seats are reduced from 452 to 88 seats. These seats are returned through the double seats and single vote system. 179 seats are appointed by the chief executive, while 176 will be indirectly elected among 3 committees, namely the Area, District Fight Crime and Fire Safety Committees.
Is the black violence, it is the attempt to make Hong Kong independent and the attempt to cause disaster to Hong Kong society as a whole that we need to bridge. We'll live through that. Don't forget it.
All candidates for the directly elected seats must secure nominations from each of the 3 committees. None of the candidates fielded by pro-democracy parties garnered enough nominations to enter the race.
都唔知點樣去揾到啲3會成員咧，去爭取提名，客觀上造成一種唔公平嘅現象咧。
On the eve of the election day, still a rather subdued election atmosphere. The government launched a district election fund day to drum up enthusiasm. In the meantime, 6 people were arrested by the ICAC on the election day for having allegedly called on others to cast invalid ballots or not to vote. On the election day, the electronic poll register system crashed. The polling period was extended for 1.5 hours till midnight. 1.19 million voters cast their ballots with a turnout rate at 27.54%. the lowest ever in the district council election.
新一屆嘅區議員將會由來自不同背景、界別、階層、專業嘅人士等等組成，令到地區嘅工作更加立體。
In mid-May, Civic Party disbanded after the party voted to voluntarily wind up operations. That ended some 17 years of championing for opposition causes. In December, the party ended its final stages of winding up, with the party's former chairman Alan Leong announcing the Civic Party will officially dissolve in March 2024. In January, former director of the Office for Safeguarding National Security, Zhen Yanxiong, succeeded Luo Huining as the director of the Liaison Office. This year, hearings for national security cases continued. The landmark national security trial involving 47 pro-democracy figures began in February. The defendants were charged with conspiracy to subvert state power. 31 pleaded guilty. 4 have become prosecution witnesses. 16 activists, including former law professor Benny Tai, pleaded not guilty. In June, the court ruled that evidence showed that 16 defendants committed subversion. In early December, the prosecutors and defense lawyers wrapped up their closing argument. The judges will return a verdict later. In December, the national security trial for Nix Digital founder Jimmy Lai began under heavy security, with saber-toothed armored vehicle and gun-toting officers deployed.
佢哋返嚟香港自首啦，
In July, the police issued warrants and offered $1 million bounties for the arrest of 8 activists who fled overseas. The 8 accused of national security offenses include 3 former Democratic Party lawmakers Ted Hui, Nathan Law, and Dennis Kwok, as well as businessman Elmer Yun, also the father-in-law of lawmaker Eunice Yong.
我咧就冇同任何呢8名人士咧有任何接觸，亦都冇佢哋嘅聯絡方式嘅。咁我亦都係支持警方嘅執法，亦都係支持國安法入邊嘅所有嘅條文。
Days later, Hong Kong National Security Police arrested 3 former members of the now-defunct Demosisto, including Ivan Lam. They were arrested on suspicion of running the Me Punish Club app to support Nathan Law, who has fled overseas. Police arrested 4 more individuals suspected of subscribing to the online platform to fund Nathan Law and Ted Hui. Family members of some of the wanted activists were detained by National Security Police for questioning. In mid-December, police named 5 more people to a list of wanted people. They include former barrister Johnny Falk and ex-member of Scholarism Francis Hui. Former activist Agnes Chow, who allegedly committed national security offenses, jumped bail. She announced she would not return to Hong Kong to meet her bail conditions. Chow is now in Canada. She claims she spent a day with National Security Police officers in Shenzhen as a condition of letting her leave Hong Kong. Seven advocates, including Jimmy Lai and Martin Lee, had their convictions for organizing a 2019 unauthorized assembly overturned. The Court of Appeal rejected the prosecution's bid to challenge the acquittal of the 7 activists. The court also allowed the 7 defendants to take the case to the Court of Final Appeal to appeal for their conviction of having taken part in an illegal assembly. In another court case, online media outlet Stan News was charged with publishing seditious material. Closing arguments ended at the end of June. In May, sculpture Pillar of Shame, previously placed in the Hong Kong University campus, which was seized by police last year, was taken by the National Security Department from the storage in Yuen Long for investigations into a subversion case. As of early 2023, more than 6,000 people arrested in the 2019 social unrest were not being charged.
佢哋肯去改過自身咧，其實咧個社會係要俾一個機會俾佢。 係俾佢重新出發。
The police said they would announce how to handle all the cases in February, but no further announcement was made. In his policy address in October, the chief executive said legislation of Basic Law Article 23 will be completed in 2024 with a public consultation.
I'm sure, like national security law under Article 23, the freedom of speech and the basic freedom of people, and also those related international confidence will be covered and will be safeguarded.
In November, U.S. congressmen objected to inviting CE John Lee to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in San Francisco. The CE said he received a personal invitation but would not attend due to scheduling issues. Financial Secretary Paul Chan attended the summit instead. At the first authorized protest in 3 years, the number of participants was capped at 100. Protesters must also wear numbered badges.
即係大家係無奈地接受，但係即係有得揀，大家都唔會想接受呢樣嘢。
After 40 years of publishing satirical comic strips, political cartoonist Dun Zi published his last work in May. Public libraries removed his publications and some books of other political figures.
香港嘅自由，包括公眾活動，包括言論、新聞自由充分保障，但係不可能違法。
RTHK's news program Hong Kong Connection producer Choi Yuk-ling was arrested and convicted of making false statements to get private records when she produced a report on an attack in Yuen Long July 21, 2019. Choi made an appeal to the Court of Final Appeal. 5 judges voted unanimously to overturn the conviction.
言論自由同埋新聞自由咧受到憲法所保障。我亦都希望大家唔好因為今次嘅案例而嚇怕咗，或者影響到日後喺進行新聞調查上面嘅時候會考慮咁樣。
National anthem blunder happened again this year.
We are very sorry, it will be corrected.
At the end of February, Hong Kong won at the Ice Hockey World Championships division. A song associated with the 2019 social unrest was played instead of the Chinese national anthem. The Hong Kong Ice Hockey Association's membership was suspended. The Sports Federation and Olympic Committee of Hong Kong later amended guidelines, requiring all coaches to collect toolkits from the committee every time before setting off for international events. In July, a 27-year-old man was found guilty of disrespecting the national anthem. He was accused of replacing the national anthem with a protest tune Glory to Hong Kong online, in a video showing Hong Kong fencing athlete Eka Cheung receiving the gold medal. He was sentenced for 3 months. It marked the first conviction under Hong Kong's national anthem law. The Department of Justice applied to the High Court for an injunction against playing the protest song Glory to Hong Kong. The High Court rejected the application, which led to an appeal by the government. The High Court allowed the appeal and the trial began in December. In May, the government planned to set up a regular cross-boundary organ transplant mechanism with the mainland. Later, authorities detected an uptick in suspicious withdrawals from the Hong Kong organ donor register. The police arrested 2 people for vilifying the organ donation system. They were convicted of 3 counts of vandalism.
都好鼓勵大家必須要咧去唔好忘記我哋嘅初心。我哋希望離開世界之後咧，可以為愛人間。
As Hong Kong is grappling with an exodus of citizens and a declining birth rate, the government rolled out a slew of measures in 2023 to trawl talent, replenish manpower at all levels, and encourage couples to give birth. After weathering the pandemic, Hong Kong's job market continues to improve, and the minimum wage was raised to $40 an hour. It's expected to benefit 87,000 workers. Despite the low unemployment rate, employers still find it hard to recruit. The government launched a top talent pass scheme at the end of last year to entice foreign talent. In a controversial case, He Jiankui, a scientist previously imprisoned on the mainland for having edited embryonic genes and illegally practiced medicine, was given work visa via the scheme in February. His visa was later revoked. The government subsequently tightened the eligibility requirement of the scheme and other work visa applications. Applicants must declare if they had a criminal record. As of October, the Immigration Department has approved more than 43,000 applications for the top talent pass scheme and more than 42,000 applications for their dependents.
子女的教育应该是最重要的一个因素，就是促使我们来到香港。
The government announced in mid-June that it would relax the labor import scheme for 26 low-skilled occupations. They include the construction, transportation, and catering industries.
好多我哋啲婦女啊或者基層嘅勞工咧係會從事呢啲行業，會對我哋工友去投身勞動市場咧造成好巨大嘅衝擊嘅。
The enhanced supplementary labor scheme accepted applications starting September. By the end of October, it had received more than 1,000 applications involving upwards of 12,000 workers. Hong Kong's birth rate remains at a low level. In the policy address, measures were proposed to encourage childbearing. They include increasing the public service quota for assisted reproductive services, giving families with newborn babies priority in the allocation of subsidized housing, and offering a cash incentive of $20,000 for each newborn baby.
唔係話今日開始咁樣幫啊嘛，應該係要諗辦法去幫到每一個，咁先係真正嘅還富於民啊嘛。
In the property market, first-hand residential units were sold at bargain prices. Secondary market transactions slowed down. Property prices dipped for 6 consecutive months since May. Chief Executive John Lee later cut back some of the property cooling measures. Buyer stamp duty was halved to 7.5%. Eligible incoming workers will be allowed to pay stamp duty using the exemption first and tax later method.
今次係去切減咗某一類嘅辣椒咧，我哋最重要咧就希望嗰個物業市道咧係健康咁發展，唔好大上大落。
More than 210,000 people live in subdivided flats. The government established a working group to study how to define and ban low-quality housing.
咁就會不停問媽媽：咁我哋幾時上公屋啊？我話好快啦，好快啦。
The average waiting time for public housing increased to 5.6 years in the third quarter. The Housing Authority expects the duration to keep rising in the future. The hunt for land continued for light public housing as well. At the beginning of this year, the government announced a new batch of sites in Kai Tak, Chai Wan, Choi Hong, and Siu Lam. They are expected to generate around 30,000 units. At the end of 2023, 5 more vacant school buildings will be converted into light public housing. Progress has been made on the land resumption efforts on the Fanling Golf Course to build public housing. In September, the government took back 32 hectares of land. About 9.5 hectares will be set aside for public housing. 22 hectares will be for conservation and recreation. The time-varying toll plans at 3 cross-harbor tunnels were finally implemented this year to streamline and divert traffic. In the first phase, tolls for private cars through the Western Harbor Crossing were reduced to $60, while the charges for the Cross-Harbor Tunnel and Eastern Harbor Crossing were increased to $30. The second phase was implemented in mid-December. Private cars are charged different toll levels at different time slots. Non-peak hour rates are set at only $20. The Transport Department has also launched Hong Kong e-Toll, a non-stop toll payment service. Toll booths and auto toll lanes are removed at most toll tunnels, but some drivers say they were charged excessive tolls. In the first 5 months since the service was launched, the Transport Department received 70 complaints daily.
易通行呢個實行嘅宗旨係背道而馳咯，係完全係亂通行。
At the end of the year, the Legislative Council passed a taxi driver offense points bill. Cabbies who overcharge fares or refuse a hire will be slapped with demerit points. The review of the MTR fare adjustment mechanism was completed in March. For the first time, the range of fare adjustments will be linked to the rail giant's property development profits. Under the proposal, the extent of fare hikes is capped at 0.8 percentage points. Controversy surrounding the coming-of-age documentary To My 19-Year-Old Self. Some students featured in the movie said they had not consented to public screening. The Office of the Privacy Commissioner for Personal Data sent a letter to Yinghua Girls' School, which commissioned the film to follow up. The deadline for the real name registration program for prepaid mobile SIM cards came and went at the end of February. About 12 million SIM cards were registered. However, it failed to eliminate phone nuisance and scams. Along with hacking apps and social media scams, in the first 10 months this year, there were more than 30,000 fraud cases, accounting for nearly half of the total number of crimes, with losses to the tune of nearly $2.5 billion. Virtual asset trading platform JPEX was suspected of conspiracy to commit fraud. The police received at least 1,600 reports involving more than $1.2 billion and arrested at least 66 people. The incident not only caused the public to worry about this type of trading platform, but also led some to wonder why the Securities and Futures Commission did not take action earlier when authorities noticed JPEX's suspicious business practices early on.
調查真係需要少少時間嘅，咁我哋已經係好着手去調查嘅。咁一見到可能有可疑嘅懷疑係詐騙嘅，我哋已經隨即轉介咗俾警方㗎啦。
By the end of the year, the SFC named Hong Kong Digital Research Institute and BitCupid for suspected fraud and reported them to the police. On another platform, Hunax, some investors are suspected of being defrauded. The police received 88 reports involving more than $100 million. In May this year, the coach and some players on the football team of Happy Valley Athletic Association were arrested for suspected match fixing. It also owes some players and staff more than $1.37 million in salaries. The court ordered the immediate liquidation of the club's holding company in December. The Competition Commission took action on several cases this year. 4 real estate agencies were suspected of colluding to fix rebate levels for buyers of new flats. The commission sued 5 senior executives of Midland Holdings and Hong Kong Property Agency, while Centerline received leniency for providing information for investigations. 2 major food delivery platforms, Foodpanda and Deliveroo, have signed exclusive cooperation terms with restaurants. The Competition Commission investigated and alleged that they violated the competition ordinance. There were multiple accidents involving falling ceiling concrete and surgical lamps at public hospitals. The hospital authority set up a review committee to investigate and initiate legal proceedings to hold the contractors accountable. After several medical beauty accidents, there has been criticism on the insufficient regulations on beauty salons. Some lawmakers say the Private Healthcare Facilities Ordinance should be implemented as soon as possible to stop medical procedures from being carried out in beauty salons.
好想親身去睇啊！我個海洋公園都冇咁嘅機會啊！
In mid-July, a brood as well was spotted in Port Shelter and High Island off the coast of Sai Kung. The government and NGOs appeal to citizens not to take whale-watching boat trips. By the end of the month, a whale carcass was found in the water south of Shelter Island, with at least 2 suspected wounds on it. In August, Japan's Tokyo Electric Power Company announced that it would discharge treated nuclear wastewater into the sea. The Hong Kong government immediately banned the import of all seafood products from 10 Japanese prefectures.
咁我哋都並無選擇啦，我哋唯有繼續係禁止日本10個都縣嘅水產品進入香港，嚟到係保障我哋香港嘅食物安全同埋我哋市民嗰個嘅衞生。
Hong Kong courts ruled in favor of same-sex couples' rights to apply for public housing in the name of the family and equal inheritance. The government has filed an appeal.
Our home, please welcome Hong Kong!
Gay Games Hong Kong was held in November for 8 consecutive days. There was opposition from multiple groups and political parties.
政府都係支持各個唔同嘅領域入邊咧，香港應該係有多元共融嘅。咁當然呢個係會包括性小眾嗰個權益在內啦。
Welcome back. In this last section of Hong Kong Review 2023, we'll look back at some extreme weather conditions that pummeled the city this year, as well as human-induced mishaps and tragedies. They include a string of fatal industrial and construction site accidents that occurred throughout the year, despite authorities' tightened occupational safety regulations.
Record-breaking high temperatures, probably one of the most heard lines in our weather reports this year. In response to extreme weather conditions, the Labor Department issued the Heat Stress at Work guidelines, advising outdoor workers and those working indoors but without air conditioning to take breaks accordingly. In mid-May, an amber heat stress at work warning was issued for the first time, but it was criticized for being difficult to implement.
因為有啲地方信號唔好啦，或者偏遠啊，或者你知道之後咧，可能嗰個時間已經過咗啦。
The average temperature in August reached 29.7 degrees, smashing the observatory's record. Together with June and July, Hong Kong experienced the hottest summer on record. The mercury in some December days still topped 30 degrees. Extreme weather conditions also brought many typhoons. Super Typhoon Saola hit Hong Kong at the end of August.
乜嘢都預先做，8號風球我哋都預先講俾大家聽，今晚掛我哋早啲講。
The observatory issued typhoon signal number 10, the first time since Mangkhut pummeled Hong Kong in 2018. Saola was the second strongest tropical cyclone to affect the South China Sea since 1950, but it didn't cause much damage to the city in the end. The government also launched an interdepartmental mobilization mechanism for the first time to deal with the aftermath. Less than a week later, strong Typhoon Haikui brought heavy downpours, catching Hong Kong off guard. A citizen was swept across the street. The Wong Tai Sin MTR station was flooded. The platform was transformed into a river. The government activated the extreme situation mechanism, declaring at 5 a.m. that all schools would be closed. Employers must make work arrangements for typhoon signal number 8.
基於今次極端情況嘅經驗呢，我哋會研究點樣讓市民呢更容易掌握相關嘅工作安排。
A sight of devastation after the storm. The entire north wing basement of Temple Mall in Wong Tai Sin was inundated. Restaurants were submerged.
出邊嘅水咧位咧係好高，不斷上升嘅。我哋抽咗出去咧，都係會入翻嚟。
At Yutong Estate in Shao Kei Wan, large rocks tumbled off the slope. A landslide on Shekou Road blocked the only access into the area for residents. Chief Executive John Lee visited the site and ordered traffic to be restored as soon as possible.
最緊要嗰啲居民都安心。嗱，佢知道你呢條路幾時幾時開咧，佢心裏邊就定啦。
The government set up an interdepartmental team to provide residents with daily supplies and communication equipment. Firefighters temporarily built a pontoon on the back beach of Shekou so residents could evacuate by boat. There's more danger at the luxury housing complex Red Hill Peninsula.
我亦都會採取行動，針對一啲僭建嘅建築物係依法處理嘅，會要求佢清拆。
Authorities also inspected the entire housing estate and found that many houses had unauthorized constructions. The Development Bureau later planned to amend the regulations to step up the penalties for unauthorized constructions. In October, Typhoon Koinu struck Hong Kong. Signal number 8 was hoisted at noon with relatively less severe gusts and rain, allowing children to enjoy their holiday.
少大雨啊！
咁點解仲踢波嘅？
因為冇嘢做咯。
At 7 p.m., the observatory issued the number 9 signal and the MTR suspended services in the open-air section. Many people were left stranded. By 11 p.m., the signal was lowered to a number 8 and would be maintained until 11 a.m. the next morning on Monday. People continued to enjoy their typhoon leave the second day, but by this time, Typhoon Koinu had weakened and moved away from Hong Kong. causing doubt over the observatory standard of hoisting signal number 8.
喺科學上面就唔達標嘅，咁但係大家要知道，即係掛風球咧，其實最終嘅目的就係即係所謂大家保障大家市民嘅安全。
Regarding site safety, the government revised the Occupational Safety and Health Ordinance in April this year. Serious crimes are punishable by up to 2 years in prison, and the maximum fine is also raised from $500,000 to $10 million.
政府、勞方資方大家都攜手，為香港嘅整體利益咧就向前行，作出改善。
Yet more industrial accidents happened. One of the more prominent cases, 2 workers were replacing underground cooling pipes at a construction site around Austin Road West. They were trapped overnight and died from suspected methane inhalation. The engineering manager of the main contractor, Raft E&M Engineering Limited, and the person in charge of Shum Development Limited, the subcontractor, were charged with manslaughter. The 2 companies were also given a 15-month suspension and had their license suspended, respectively. Aggressive Construction Engineering Company Limited, which was embroiled in many construction accidents in recent years, has also had its license renewal application rejected, a first for any contractors involved in industrial safety issues.
要讓我哋呢一個嘅續期制度咧發揮把關嘅作用，確保只係嗰啲有能力勝任同埋符規嘅承建商咧，先至獲得續期。
Another safety hazard unfolded at Lohas Park in Cheung Kwan O. A load-bearing wall inside one residential unit had its steel bars cut off. After inspection, the building's department said the overall structure of the building was not in danger. It ordered the owner to have the wall repaired and restored. Crimes in Hong Kong also garnered public spotlight. Early this year, a police officer was allegedly attacked while handling a noise complaint in Peng Chau. He fired 3 rounds and killed a man of non-Chinese descent. The man's friend was arrested. 2 officers were injured. At the end of February in Long Mei Village, Tai Po, the dismembered body of socialite Abby Choi was found. The victim's ex-husband, Alex Kwong Kong Chi, and another 2 family members were charged with murder. Several of Kwong's other family members and friends were charged with obstructing justice. A spate of knife attacks also left the city in shock and sadness. In June, at Hollywood Plaza in Diamond Hill, 2 passers-by were stabbed to death. A 39-year-old suspect was arrested. The case raised concerns about Hong Kong's support for mental health patients. After the Mental Health Advisory Committee convened an urgent meeting, 10 remedial measures were proposed.
我哋明白精神復原嘅人士喺康復嘅過程係唔單止需要醫療嘅護理啦，亦都需要社會福利等多方面嘅支援。
A string of cases involving familicide this year prompted people to look into the insufficient support to caregivers. The policy address proposed the use of care teams to identify caregivers in need and also planned to expand the respite service network. At the end of September, a special hotline for caregivers was launched.
如果需要進一步嘅支援，我哋都可以通過轉介啦。如果佢需要暫託，譬如一個緊急嘅暫託，佢需要交通費嘅支援咧，喺呢個熱線下面，其實我哋都可以提供到嘅，盡量幫到我哋嘅照顧者。
Some familiar faces also left us this year. And that's our look back at the major events and happenings this past year. As we ring in the new year, there's hope the economy will rebound in 2024. From every one of us at TVB Pearl, have a great year ahead.